What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I have the distinct privilege of sharing with you the rarest gun we have ever featured on the channel. We are here at the Rock Island auction in Bedford, Texas. Now, they're not a sponsor, but I've definitely given them a lot of my money over the years because at Rock Island you can find some stuff you really can't find anywhere else. Whether it's exotic elephant rifles, stuff owned by celebrities, you know, back in the day, or NFA stuff, you know, class 3 machine guns, transferables, whatever. They've got it here. Now, I've spent a lot of time with Rock Island over the years, and I've bid on quite a few things, but I've never actually come in person. But I couldn't pass up the opportunity this time because they had something that I had to come and see myself. Yeah, this auction, Rock Island had a gun that was borderline an urban legend, a myth before Rock Island got their hands on it. This is a one of one, where there was only like 1 or 2 photos of this that were really circulating the internet. Nobody really knew any backstory on it, and some people didn't even think it was fucking real. But today I've been given the honor and the privilege of showing you the only ever made prototype 30-06 Thompson. I wish I could properly impart to you how big of a deal this is. And today, we're gonna talk about what this gun is, if it works, how it kind of functions, and why this is probably the rarest gun that has ever been featured on the channel. And I even get to touch it. So bend over, big boy. So everybody's familiar with the Thompson submachine gun. You know, the iconic World War II submachine gun in .45 ACP. Your grandfather used them to kill Nazis, revenuers used them to kill mobsters, and mobsters used them to kill revenuers. Now, the part most people don't know is that long after the Thompson was developed, and actually long after John Thompson had died, someone came around and prototyped a 30-06 Thompson. Not only this, but there's actually a couple different weird prototypes. We'll get to that later. But this is frankly a huge jump to go from 45 ACP to 30-06. Or 45 ACP of the Thompson, which, you know, settled on essentially direct blowback. The grease gun, you know, stuff like that. You could just use direct blowback. You don't need any sort of locking mechanism. To go to 30-06, not only do you need a locking mechanism, you need a fucking good one. You've gone from something that theoretically can be fired in a cut down 1911 pocket pistol to something that was fired out of an M1 Garand. This thing was developed probably to be like the bar killer, like the Browning automatic rifle, not the same bar killer that, you know, your Uncle Timmy probably was. So a lot of this gun is still kind of a mystery, and today we're gonna try to go over that a little bit. Demystify what is undoubtedly one of the rarest guns on the entire planet. So let's start with the basics. So we have our magazine release right here. It's this little plunger that sticks out. Press that down, and our magazine is cut out. And what this is a modified BAR mag, which is kind of funny because you've got very clearly, I mean, this is, as somebody who's done prototyping before, this is the most prototype shit I've ever seen. Clearly just dremeled away on the back of the magazine, which is dremeled out so that the magazine release can actually, you know, retain the magazine, or the plunger rather. Now, on the driver's side of the gun, we've got something really cool, which is the electro-penciled prototype markings right here. It says experimental, which after looking at it a little bit, damn right it was. We've got the name CJ West Jr. here, as well as the year, I think it's 42/43, on what otherwise looks to be a completely unmodified Thompson lower. So you got your typical Thompson fire controls, you've got auto, semi, and then behind it, you've got your fire and your safe position. So we're gonna keep it on fire because I wanna demonstrate to you one of the weird parts, at least for a battle rifle style 30-06. This gun is open bolt. That's a choice.
I think this video is really cool, but it was made possible by the microphone pack. TacPack. TacPack is your ultimate tactical subscription box company with cool stuff like Reptilia pistol grips, SOG knives, Mantis dry fire training systems. Probably shouldn't throw those. Other tactical accessories and more. You can check them out using the links in the description and in the pinned comment, and if you use the code AKGuy, you get chlamydia. Wait, no. you do get a bonus box of tactical goodies. We want to thank TacPack as always. Check them out using the links in the description and the pinned comment. We also again want to thank SDI for being the channel sponsor. If you've ever wanted to get your start in gunsmithing and weapons technology and you're not sure where to look, maybe check them out. All the links will be below. Back to the video.
Let me drop this bolt ever so carefully because this is an expensive gun. Yeah, this functions essentially exactly like a standard 45 caliber Thompson. In fact, something that I thought was really cool that I didn't know about this until I started checking it out is that this still has the original cut in the front of the fire control group, like on the, I guess you would call this a lower, I'm not sure exactly what the proper nomenclature for the Thompson is. It still has that groove where you would insert the stick magazine right there. Even though this serves to do nothing, the magazine is up here, it still has the original mag well. So you can see by exactly how much they have stretched the gun to accommodate a 30-06 cartridge. I also don't think it's a stretch to say, unintentional, I don't think it's a stretch to say that this is a beefier upper, so to speak. It gets a lot thicker up in this area and it just seems to be a little bit it's got a little bit more meat on the bones than a 45 Thompson, which is to be expected. What we also have in the rear here is an extension for the recoil spring assembly, which allows this obviously to get the travel that it needs and the spring force that it needs to be able to function. Now that's the other question. Does this function? Great question. Next question. No, legitimately, like nobody knows. There's no documentation of this thing ever firing. We have no idea if this thing works. We have no idea if this has ever been shot. We have very little idea about this gun in general. It also has the original magazine release that in this particular gun does absolutely nothing. So it's kind of cool. I don't know, to me that's neat. It just shows you how crude of a prototype it is. It wasn't, you know, necessarily super well thought out to be polished or anything like that. They're just like, fuck it, a standard Thompson lower work, throw it on. Same with the foregrip, which is thrown onto what is a notably different color steel barrel. It's just kind of like plugged into the front of the fucking gun. Also a much longer barrel, ladies. Since I'm donning the gloves today, I feel like I've got to do Gun Jesus proud. Hi, this is Ian McCullum with Forgotten Weapons, and today we are going over the 30-06 Thompson prototype, a gun that is so rare, it is said to not even exist. In fact, it's not real, and you're not seeing it right now. You're in a coma. Your family loves you. Please, wake up. I love how my Ian just slowly turned into Barack Obama with a higher pitch. My fellow Americans, I am trapped in the YouTube video. It's like the Elvis, oh mama, I'm in the orb. I'm trapped in the orb.
This Thompson is a really cool piece, and it's no wonder it ended up at Rock Island. I'd never actually been to Rock Island in person, and this place is amazing. This place felt less like an auction house and more like a museum.
The actual Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum belonging to the man himself, Frank Sinatra, got his initials right there, very smooth, and then you got these deep, deep inlays, which I really like. I like the depth of that. That's what she said. This gun is very likely going to sell for the price of the average American's car, which means I'm going to put it down. So again, we want to thank Rock Island for the opportunity to do what I'm about to do, which is what I've wanted to do since I found out they had it, which is kind of figure out how the fuck it works. And we're going to do that right now. So, how the fuck did they manage to, at least in theory, make the Thompson handle a 30-06? Did they have some sort of locking mechanism? Is it like a flapper lock, like a rotating bolt, whatever? There's a billion ways to skin the cat of containing a 30-06 cartridge without making the gun fucking explode. So which one did they go for? Or what did they not do? So when we pull our bolt back a little bit, you can see these cuts around the bolt that are just kind of splits in the bolt itself. So pull that back a little bit, and you start to realize those aren't just cuts. The entire bolt is like a collet. Like, I don't know if you've ever messed with like a mill or a drill press or, you know, anything like that, but it's a colleted bolt. And that's because the front of the bolt itself is a plunger. So that actually moves inward into the bolt, which then expands those outward, creating sort of like a friction lock up by the chamber. So we've been told in the auction description that there's actually two brass flanges right up there in the chamber area that collet expands into, which then adds to the, again, friction delay system, which obviously that's different than any other sort of lockup mechanism I've ever heard of for something like a 30-06. The question is, does it work? Well, there's really no way of knowing outside of loading up a fucking round in this thing and seeing if it explodes, but one can have some theories. And to help explain that, we have our resident brass monkey, that funky monkey, Zach Schaefer. He's our head builder over at AKG, and the guy who helps me out with explaining complicated shit like this, because honestly, I'm not an expert on fucking blish lock. Sue me. So Zach, how is this similar to the original Thompson operating system?
So the first version of the Thompson submachine gun had what's called the blish lock, which very famously didn't work. The idea was a physics principle by a man named Blish, who thought that if you took dissimilar metals, such as brass and steel, and you pushed them against each other under high pressure, they would have more friction than they would otherwise have, that the coefficient of friction would go up, so they'd get more sticky. And so the idea was they put a wedge in a bolt, and that the idea was under pressure with the cartridge firing, it would have to drive that wedge out of the receiver to then unlock the gun as a delayed blowback. And they were hoping that the dissimilar metals would delay it further than just having plain mass wood. Ultimately, this was proven to not be how physics works.
Right, which is why they trashed it on the original Thompson.
Right, the original Thompson, they ripped it out, they put direct blowback in there, and it works just fine.
Yeah.
Where that comes in here is this has a pair of brass inserts up in the chamber that the collet on the bolt expands into and grabs onto. Now, whether they thought that this was going to work like blish lock, or whether it was just there to be a replaceable piece, we don't really know.
One thing we do know, though, is that if you can zoom in a little bit here through the ejection port, which I might also add, the ejection port is extraordinarily narrow. Maybe that's all they need, but it seems a little optimistic from my perspective. But if we can pull that bolt back a little bit, we can see one of the edges on that little collet there are actually missing. That has been removed. I don't know if it has been purposely cut off for ejection clearance or whatever it is. It is a prototype. There's a lot of stuff on here that's pretty crude. Or if they tried to fire this and realized just how much that lockup didn't work and it blew off part of the bolt. It's legitimately impossible to say. What we do know is that if it is like blish lock and it doesn't actually end up really delaying much at all, with 30-06 and the weight of the bolt that we have currently, or you know, what it looks like we have, that is a fucking issue. As it turns out, bolt mass, pretty important when it comes to direct blowback.
Very important. The weight of the bolt is the only thing that's keeping the cartridge from bursting. You're basically just taking the energy of the bullet and putting some of it backwards into the bolt to cycle the gun. And how heavy it is how fast that thing opens. So if it opens real fast when that cartridge is still full of pressure, it'll be like a water balloon bursting. It wants to go somewhere, it's gonna go out.
So even if you have like a 9mm, like a submachine gun, like a Sten or something, if you lighten that bolt enough, the gun's gonna blow up because it needs that mass to keep it in the chamber long enough to not, you know, explode in your hands.
So on something like 45 ACP or 9mm, the bolt is usually somewhere around 1 to 2 pounds, depending on the gun. With 30-06, off the top of my head, there's charts you can look up for it. I think the number is somewhere around 20 pounds for it to be safe in direct blowback.
And there's no way in fuck that is 20 pounds.
No, I think the whole gun they said is 20-something pounds for the entire thing.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of that is in this very, you know, thick milled receiver.
Chunky.
It is chunky. That is a beefy boy.
Thick with a Q. Pivoting ejector is kind of cool because you can see it right through the mag well. That little fella.
So yeah, actually I was able to get it with my finger there a little bit. So that pops out like so.
It is interesting that the tip of it would be hitting towards the front of the casing. Typically you'd be hitting the back of the casing on most small arms.
Would it?
If relative to the ejection port, yeah.
I really wonder what that's all about.
Yeah, maybe because it doesn't have a normal extractor claw. It can pivot the cartridge out at a more severe angle. I don't know. Maybe that's why that leaf is cut away.
Interesting. Yeah, because the one thing you do notice on this, and this is why I'm kind of convinced that they did cut it away, is you can see right there where there is exposed metal, where it kind of looks like somebody had filed that down or had cut away from that intentionally. It doesn't look like it just cracked off.
Yeah.
I could be fucking wrong, but that's what it looks like to me anyway.
That's what it looks like as well.
You also mentioned there was something up with these things on the sides of the magazines.
Yeah, so these appear to be oil pads. So your cartridges would get a light film of oil when you load them into the magazine and it feeds it into the gun. Being that this thing is probably some form of delay blowback, or rather is some form of delay blowback, the action tends to open at a higher speed than a normal like locked breech gun, for example, which means that your casing is still under a bit of pressure, which means that casing is grabbing the barrel pretty hard. Now, on stuff like an MP5 or a G3, they have flutes in the chamber that tap some of the gas from the barrel, and it kind of squeezes the cartridge and kind of floats it out of the chamber. This doesn't have those. So the older school way of doing that is to put oil on your cartridges in an attempt to help it extract easier.
Which is still kind of seen today. Like there's certain, what is it, like 5.7 I think is that's a lubricated cartridge, right?
Yeah, 5.7 has some sort of dry lube on it typically, because 5.7 is a straight wall cartridge, so it grabs.
Yeah.
A lot of older school machine guns and some prototype rifles used oiled cartridges way back in the day in the early 1900s. And it was largely abandoned because one of the problems with these things is that if you're running around in dust and dirt and all that, that oil also picks up the dust and dirt. And now you have a really dirty cartridge instead of a really oily cartridge.
It's lubricated with sandpaper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which does exactly the opposite of what you want.
Not great. Another thing I didn't know about this gun until earlier, which I think is kind of cool, is just worth pointing out. It's one of the other designers, H.P. Unger, I think, H.P. Unger Jr. Apparently he's a firearms dealer in Chicago after World War II. His firearms dealing and prototyping career came to an end when he was caught in the 70s with a ton of illegal M2 carbine conversion kits, which, based. Free my homie Unger, he did probably exactly what they said he did, but it was cool. Something else that's really cool, being able to hold this in person, is that the upper, or the receiver, whatever, seems to have been spot heat treated, because you can see the discoloration right here behind the magazine well, and right here at the very end, meaning that they needed this to be a particular hardness for some reason. What that reason is, I do not know and could not tell you, but they felt like it was important enough to put a fucking blowtorch to it. Man, it's a cool piece, and it's really cool to see. I mean, a gun that I had heard stories of. Like,
yeah,
everybody's just seen that one grainy black and white photo of this gun, but I honestly didn't even know if it was a real thing, if it was just a concept, whatever. But to actually be able to hold this in person in full fucking 4K Technicolor is wild.
Yeah, usually when you see something this rare and cool in like a black and white picture, you start Googling it and you look it up, it's like, oh yeah, it was lost in museum fire 50 years ago.
Right.
So it's really cool that this one's still around.
So given all of that, do you think that it works?
If I were to cast my vote, I would say no.
I would say no.
I actually had a lot more confidence in this gun firing before I fucked with it. Having seen it, I don't think I would shoot it. If I would shoot this gun, it would be like with a half power cartridge.
Yeah.
Just something to see if the basic principle even works. But not to be a party pooper, but this gun scares the shit out of me.
We have some software where we could like plug in the weight of this and assume it works as direct blowback, like that the friction does nothing, and then develop a load that would be safe for that direct blowback. Fire it with that, and then take a reading to see how much the blowback actually did. Whether or not we want to do that to a one-of-one prototype is the other question.
I had mixed feelings about it, because I was thinking, because like I'm still probably going to bid on this. We'll see if I actually get the gun. By the time this comes out, you'll know.
55 now 60,000, bid 65 now 70,000, servers say 70,000 now 75 some more. 85 now 90. Same comments. The only one no. 30 out 6 Thompson. Are we all done back there? All through, all done. Thank you very much for the bid. It's going to be a last call. Fair warning at 90,000. Last call. Sold 85,000 or 22.
I had mixed feelings, because I'm like, okay, even if we do break something, if we did try to fire it, like, ramped up from underpowered cartridges to see if we can get it to cycle, even if we did break something, it remains an unfireable one-of-one prototype. As if, no different than if we assumed it was unfireable.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I had mixed feelings, but you also don't want to destroy a piece of history, because this is just a really cool piece.
Yeah, the one thing I could see maybe breaking from firing it is that call-it system.
Yes.
Assuming we start with a light power load. Other than that, it's all so incredibly beefy that if you're running light loads, I don't see anything else that would be obviously fragile.
You don't hardness test the Hope Diamond.
Yeah, right.
Now, I briefly mentioned earlier other prototype Thompsons, and I have another really cool piece that's just kind of like a little bonus. This is a Thompson submachine gun prototype, you know, with the traditional, you know, Navy or mobster grip on the front, but it is chambered in .30 carbine. You know, just like the traditional World War II M1 carbine. Which this prototype, I think this would work. This makes perfect sense. .30 carbine's not crazy compared to 45 ACP. Certainly nowhere in the fucking ballpark of 30-06. This is a neat piece because, you know, this is, again, just a super rare prototype. Why they put this in .30 carbine, I have no idea, but it's neat. And I'm glad that if they did it, I got a chance to hold one, because you do not see stuff like this ever, really. Another thing I did notice, because it's a prototype, the magazine release doesn't work. Prototyping. It is funny too, if you look at the back of this magazine, just how like shittily that hole was drilled. They're just like, ah, fuck it. We'll just put a circular-ish hole there and it'll probably work. Spoiler alert. Also, again, open bolt. And also, again, very, very cool. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is a privilege to have presented to you what, to my understanding, is the only complete breakdown of the 30-06 Thompson prototype, the only one on the planet, and it's in my hands. What even is life? Like, seriously, this is an exotic. This is an exotic firearm, especially to somebody like me who has done stuff like in prototyping. And I can just see what they were going for and all the little stuff they did, like using the original Thompson lower and little stuff. Just the way they kludged this shit together is just so endearing to me. So whether it fires or not, and whether it would explode if you ever put a live round into it, I just think it's fucking neat. And it was a privilege to be able to show it to you guys today. Congratulations if you made it this far. Your prostate exam is done. God, those gloves are sweaty. That's fucking gross. Anyhow, I know there was no real shooting in this video, but I figured if you guys are firearms nerds like me, you would still find this to be pretty fucking cool. It's like a gun guy way of saying, was it good for you? It was good for me. Was it good for you? Anyhow, I just want to say I appreciate Rock Island for letting me come over here and finger fuck this amazing museum piece. I appreciate you for staying all the way to the end of the video. And as always, I will see you sexy YouTube mother lovers in the next one. Thanks, guys. Ooh, that unthreads. Don't fuck with that. A 1 of 1, 0 of 1, complete Thompson. If Santa Baby fucks this video.